Well, kind of an unintended consequence, side trip, and hey, let's check this out while I'm here. I'm at the Saratoga Auto Museum in Saratoga Springs, New York. My name is Mark from Let's Go Car Cruising. Let's go in and check it out. There's a lot of cool stuff to see. Let's get to it.
Hi everybody, and welcome to the Saratoga Automobile Museum's Sunday Unlimited gallery talk. It's unlimited because you can ask all the questions you want.
You shouldn't have said that. You're in trouble now.
Yeah, we may not have answers for you, but we'll be happy to entertain your questions until I get tired.
Okay.
Okay, but we always start here at this car, which is the oldest machine we have in the museum. The reason is it's a 1912 Model T, which makes it a very special year for the Model T. Now, we know that Henry Ford didn't invent the automobile. The person who's usually given credit for that is Carl Benz in 1885, when he developed his proof of concept prototype, what would become known as the motor wagon. Mm-hmm. That had about, 3/4 of a horsepower engine. And so a generation later, when Henry Ford comes out with the Model T with a 20 horsepower engine, you see that it's a significant improvement. But this is really, as you look at it, halfway between automobile and farm wagon. Right. Let's take a look together.
Okay.
These wheels, those are wagon wheels. The top is right off of a carriage. The lanterns for lighting are right off of a carriage. And most importantly, perhaps, this front axle arrangement of a solid I-beam and a transverse leaf spring, that is classic farm wagon. And it worked well on farm wagons, and it works well here. Now, that 20 horsepower today doesn't seem like much to us, but to a farmer living in Saratoga County in 1912, 10 miles out of town, and the only way into town is perhaps on a bicycle, but if they want to bring produce into town or chickens or whatever, they got to hitch up old Bessie, who's living in the barn, mm-hmm. to the wagon and head down the road. Now, this is not a nicely paved road. It's a dirt track until they're almost in town. And so that poor Bessie, with 1 horsepower, is pretty tired and not going fast, and it's a long day to come to town and get home. Henry Ford comes along and shows this machine to the farm community across America, and they think, that's worth 20 Bessies in the barn, and this will get me to town a whole lot quicker. And the effect is, it begins to end the rural isolation of America's farmers and America's folks living out in small towns. All of a sudden, you could get to where you wanted to go. The roads weren't great, the gas stations weren't there yet, there were no road maps. It was tricky, but over time, it was going to develop into the personal mobility system that we enjoy today. And it begins with a machine like this.
Perfect. All right.
So let's keep going though,
okay.
Because we're having fun. Join me down here. We're going to take a look at a 1947 machine. And we're looking at these things because these are the predecessors, these are the precursors to Corvette. There would be no Corvette without the Model T, without Louis Chevrolet, and without cars like this being built in Europe between the wars and right after the Second World War. Now, this particular machine is a Cisitalia. Cisitalia was an Italian company. It was in and out of business within a decade. They didn't make that many cars. They're not Fiat, they're not Alfa Romeo, they're not Ferrari. They're Cisitalia. But they built something that was utterly unique and groundbreaking. In fact, the design of this coupe this kind of body was so unique in its time that if you go to the Museum of Modern Art in New York City, you'll find one, because it is that special. It was that groundbreaking a machine. So what makes this so groundbreaking? Well, first of all, it is a space frame construction. Underneath that beautiful coachwork, you'll find steel tubes welded together into a space frame, and from that space frame is hung the engine, the transmission, the rear end, the suspension. The bodywork is strictly for aerodynamics. It provides no structural support to the car whatsoever. It's super thin, it's super light. We have it roped off because if you lean on it, you can dent it. It's a beautiful machine. Under that hood, that long hood, is a Fiat engine of about 1 liter's displacement, or 60 cubic inches, generating, and I'll repeat this because it's such a shocking number, 65 horsepower. Let me say that again.
Wow.
65 horsepower in a racing car. But the thing weighs next to nothing, 1,300 pounds, so it is capable 103 miles an hour. That's pretty fast in 1947 for a car that, yeah, it's built for racing, but it's built for road racing. It's going on unimproved roads in Italy. If you can imagine what the roads in Italy were going to be like in 1947, they're rutted, they're beat up, they're broken, and this race, the Mille Miglia, is run on public roads. So while you're racing along at 100 miles an hour, a farmer might pull his tractor right in front of you. So you better be able to steer and brake and be patient, because that's what's going to be, you're going to be sharing that road and that 1,000-mile race with.
Wow.
This car finished third overall, second in class, the class being 1 liter and under, and is a marvelous machine. And what I really want to show you, come around this way please, is the back of it.
I noticed it's very narrow.
It's very narrow, comes to a point, they called it a coffin back rear end. We would call it a boat tail. And we're going to see that look again in the Corvette. And it really goes to show that in the world of design and art, there are very few new ideas. Ideas get recirculated. So if you know the origins of things, if you know the 140-year history of the automobile, you're able to find the ideas that came before. Just as we saw the transverse leaf spring suspension came from a wagon to the Model T. We're going to see that on those early Corvettes. Actually, we're going to see it on every single Corvette until the C8, the current model. They all have transverse leaf spring rear suspensions. The early days, they were made out of steel. Later on, they're going to be made out of different kinds of materials, different metals, different composites, because it works. It's a brilliant setup. And if it's brilliant in 1912, it just might be brilliant in the mid-1950s up through the 2020s.
Sure.
So that's the Cisitalia. Over here, we have a Ferrari Testarossa. And this car is important to our Corvette story, believe it or not, because this is from 1957. In 1957, this was a race car, but the engine could be put into a Ferrari coupe, and many were. They were lovely cars, absolutely lovely. With this particular one, you can see the space frame construction, those black tubes. That's what's supporting the car. You can see beyond that the inside metal panel of the door. You can see how thin and light these things are. So Chevrolet had a problem. They knew that a true sports car, and they're looking at the models out there, are made out of aluminum for lightness. But this stuff in the mid-50s, early 50s, as they're thinking about the car, is very expensive. And they know they have to come up with that car at a certain price point. Aluminum is expensive because the Korean War is still going on in the early 1950s. And so aluminum is hard to come by. They don't want to build it out of steel because setting up for steel presses is very expensive. And they never imagined that they would sell that many Corvettes. So they were looking for an alternative material. alternative to aluminum, alternative to steel, and what did they come up with? Fiberglass.
Bingo.
Which was the new miracle material of the time. It's going to have problems, but it gets the job done initially. So let's head on downstairs and take a look at that. Come on.
A young man last year, young, like 5 years old, he said this looks like Buzz Lightyear and I can't unsee it.
So late 40s, early 50s, Chevrolet is starting to think, you know, we've got this crowd of young men. Many had military service, many saw interesting sports cars while they were doing service, particularly in England. They got to drive some Jaguars, they got to drive some MGs, they got to drive some Triumphs, and they are, in some cases, bringing those machines home. And Chevrolet sees an opportunity.
Because we have nothing.
Because we really don't have much of that. Yes, there were always people taking Model Ts and Model As and souping them up and putting custom bodies on it, but nothing that came from a manufacturer that said, this is a sports car. So Chevrolet decides that's what they're going to try to do, and they go to work. But Chevrolet, being part of General Motors, always is working to a budget, always looking to shave not just dollars, not just quarters, but dimes and nickels and pennies as they manufacture their product. So they're going to try to build a sports car looking at the parts bin and saying, well, what engine do we already have? We're not going to build a new engine for this machine. We're not going to build a new transmission. What do we have in the inventory that we can cobble together and call a sports car? And they can do that relatively easily, and they do it. Their challenge is, what's the coachwork going to look like? What's the body of the thing going to look like? And they realize that that is the sizzle on the steak.
Sure.
They've got to come up with a body that grabs people, that gets attention. And this is the look they come up with. To our eyes today, it looks a little bit clunky, it looks a little bit funky, but in the day, you have to compare it to what was out there. This is a rocket ship. As a matter of fact, it's such a rocket ship, come around with me to the rear of this car, because in the 1950s, jets are a new thing. And so they build it with tail fins and exhaust pipes coming through the coachwork. And it is a lovely effect. If you even look at the dashboard, they're going for that aero look there also. Round dials, sleek metal dash, but you can see the parts bin in this machine. First of all, that steering wheel, not special, not different, right off the production line. You'll notice there's a little knob on the tunnel. What's that for? That's that 2-speed automatic transmission that came with this car. It was the only transmission available in the early days. 2-speed automatic. Not so different from that 1912 Model T we looked at. That also had a 2-speed transmission. And you'll recall we looked at that front suspension of the Model T. It's the same in the back on a Model T, but this suspension here, transverse leaf, single spring, that saves money. Regular brakes right off the production line. The engine in this car is a inline 6 Blue Flame Special. That was a production engine. Puts out, now, I mean, I made you stop when we were upstairs. This one's good for 150 horsepower. Now, again, in our era, when we're talking about cars with 1,000, 1,100, 1,200, 1,500 horsepower, that doesn't sound like much. But in the early 1950s, mid-1950s, 150 horsepower in a car that doesn't weigh much is a lot of power. And this was an interesting car for people to drive at that time. It was very different. But it wasn't perfect. There were a lot of problems, particularly with the bodies. Fiberglass was a new material, No one really knew how it was going to hold up in an application like this where it's getting bounced around and torqued constantly and twisted. And of course, they cracked. And with the cracks, the paint cracks. So if you look carefully at the front of this, you'll see plenty of cracking. But
As does my own.
Yes, and they didn't solve that problem for a very long time. I'm not even sure if the current C8s are gonna, we'll see how they hold up. But it is a lovely car to look at. It is a wonderful historic artifact of the art of building an interesting automobile. Let's
Yes,
look
it
at where
is.
this design went to. Like this. It's the same chassis, but things have changed. They realized with this, the customer feedback, not enough power. They go to a V8. Is that a problem for Chevrolet? Not at all. They've got plenty of V8s to choose from. So they start choosing V8s and putting them in. This one is unique in that it has fuel injection. That's a new thing at this period. Fuel injection had been used during the interwar period and certainly during the Second World War, primarily by Mercedes and BMW in building aircraft engines. The United States stuck with carburation for most of their aircraft. However, they did do throttle body fuel injection as opposed to direct injection.
Okay.
And this is a throttle body setup, meaning the fuel is sprayed into the manifold and then drawn into the cylinders as opposed to being injected the exact right amount at the exact right second directly into the cylinder.
Sure.
But again, you look at this, they've changed the rear end a bit. They've certainly changed the front end from the single covered headlight to this dual headlight look, which was all the rage of that period. You'll see lots of cars using that look. And again, the stampings are available. They're from the parts bin. Doesn't cost that much to change the look of the Corvette to this. And that's why they were able to do it and still keep it at a price point where regular people could afford a sports car.
Sure.
And that was the great genius of the Corvette. For this kind of performance from Ferrari, you would have been looking at a 250 of some sort. You saw the Testarossa upstairs, but that engine was used in production cars also, the same engine. Well, it puts out 300 horsepower from 3 liters. For those who are good at math, that's 180 cubic inches and 300 horsepower. That's very impressive for that period of time. And that's what Chevrolet is up against. But this is a fraction of the cost of any, like less than half. So, you know, for somebody who's a working person, they can afford to acquire one of these and enjoy a sports car. And that's the great democratization of sports cars.
There we go.
Come around this way, and let's look at where the Corvette's going. In 1963, they move away from that early look to something that is much more space age. I first encountered this car as a 10-year-old at a gas station. I had no interest in cars at that time. I didn't know anything about cars at that point, but I saw this and I was hooked, and I've never gone back. This car, and then of course the XKE Jaguar, got my attention. And I fell in love with the look and have been looking at cars and places like this ever since. So fabulous machine. Now what's unique about 1963 with the Corvette is of course this split rear window. You'll notice that the coachwork continues right through the window. It's 2 separate panels. There was a lot of controversy about this. The rearward visibility is absolutely terrible.
I was going to say beautiful to look at, not so much fun to drive.
Not well, as long as you're going forward,
Right,
not
right,
trying
right.
to back up, you're fine. And again, Corvettes are made for going forward, not for
Yes.
going back. But it's a stunning car. Loved it. Again, you'll notice the fuel-injected engine in this. And one of the things that makes Corvettes so interesting and so difficult for me as a museum guide is which version of the Corvette were you getting in 1963? They didn't all come with one engine. you had a choice of 3 or 4 different engines in any given year, any given model. You also had choices of transmissions. Oh, you'd like it with a 3-speed, 4-speed, automatic? You get to choose. Also, oh, you want to go drag racing with your Corvette? We've got a rear differential ratio gear set for you that we can just check this box and we'll put it in. That's the beauty of Corvette. Infinite, almost infinite customization was available. If you tried that with Jag, if you tried that with Ferrari, they would laugh at you. They were not interested particularly in customizing their cars at the production facility. Aftermarket, sure, there were plenty of people who would do that. But you could get a car that was very competent for taking your wife or girlfriend or a kid to go get some ice cream, or for a track day, or for a day at the drag strip. That's how flexible and versatile Corvettes were in their day. And again, stunning looks, absolutely stunning looks. Fabulous car.
Beautiful.
But time moves on.
It does.
Time moves on, and we eventually are going to get to this look. And this look, we're going to see its origins in a moment, but this Corvette look hung around for almost 15, 20 years. And so those of us of a certain age knew this car well. This is the early version of it, and it is absolutely stunning. It has that very sharp front end where the bumperette comes to a nice sharp point. It's got a Coke bottle shape. If you stand here and look down the side, you can see how it's wider in the front, tucks in at the door, widens a little bit at the back, but is gorgeous lines. And you'll notice also, again, dating ourselves, there's a mirror on the driver's side, not on the passenger side. That was an extra cost item.
Yeah.
You didn't have to have it. You could get it because you could customize these things with mirrors and whatever else you wanted, pinstripes, fancy hoods, whatever.
We don't think about not having one today.
Yeah, you wouldn't have a choice today.
Right, yeah.
It's built in. It's built in. But let's look at the origins of this machine. Come on around this way. This is the main gallery, and this is really the crown jewel in this exhibition, these 3 cars, but this one in particular. This is the 1961 Mako Shark that Bill Mitchell had made. Bill Mitchell was the head of design of General Motors. So in addition to Cadillac, in addition to Buick and Oldsmobile and everything else, he was very focused also on the Corvette. And he was also a deep sea fisherman. He liked going out and fishing. And one day he caught himself a large Mako Shark and had it taxidermied and hung behind his desk in his office in General Motors. Think about it, what does it mean if your boss has a man-eating shark behind him on your desk? You're going to say, yes, sir, whatever you'd like, we can do. But the interesting thing was he showed it to the designers at Corvette and said, build me something that captures the aesthetic of this Mako Shark. And this is what they came up with. These long lines, these gorgeous lines. And if you look at the exhaust coming through the bodywork, through the coachwork, very reminiscent of the gills of a shark or the fins of a shark. We have a couple of little fins pieces up front that might remind us of that. It's gorgeous. But one of the most outstanding features of this machine is the paintwork. And you'll notice how the paint is very dark on top, like a shark, and fades out and transitions to almost white as you get to the underside. Now that's a very difficult thing to accomplish with spray paint on a fiberglass body. And the paint guys who were working with Bill Mitchell had a hard time with it. They would make up samples, they would bring them to him in his office, and he would take the piece and hold it up to the shark on the wall and say, nope, you haven't got it yet, fellas. Go try again. They did that a number of times. They were not having much success at getting it closer and making Mr. Mitchell happy. Mr. Mitchell made the mistake of going away for a day or two. The guys got into his office, took the shark down from the wall, took it to the paint shop, painted it, put it back, brought a sample to Mr. Mitchell when he got back and said, "What do you think, boss?" He held it up and said, "Perfect, absolutely perfect."
Done.
Done. And that's what we got. Now, whether or not that story is absolutely true, who knows, but it's a great story.
It's a great story.
Corvette is all about stories and all about memories. Just as I remember that car as a 10-year-old, and I can remember my friend Fritz Sullivan from Connecticut, who I was with, and this is out in California. I remember the exact location of that service station. Corvettes evoke memories. And since they've been around for 70 years, an awful lot of us have memories of our early experiences with Corvette. So, wonderful machine. This machine came later. Again, Bill Mitchell goes fishing again, and he catches a manta ray, or sees a manta ray in the water, and tells his guys, "Hey, let's try using that as our inspiration." And as you look at that, it is absolutely gorgeous. Particularly notice the rear view mirrors on the A-pillars, tiny, tiny mirrors. You'll notice the interior rear view mirror is about, 2 inches of glass. That's because it doesn't matter, you can't see out the back of this thing anyway. Just makes no difference. But stunning looks, and this is the look that was going to inspire that 1968 C3 version of the Corvette. Beautiful long lines, sharp pointed nose, all the key characteristics are right there. And finally, we have this prototype. By the early 60s, mid-60s, other manufacturers are learning the importance of rear-engined cars. Ferrari in, I think, 67 came out with the Dino, which put the engine behind the driver. Other manufacturers were going to do that too. And Corvette was like, oh, well, we better take a look at that. And they built this prototype. And they also said, well, gee, we've been making cars now for 20-some years out of fiberglass. Maybe it's time to reconsider the material. Aluminum is available. Aluminum is relatively inexpensive. It is one of the most predominantly available metals on the planet. By this point, there was plenty of aluminum available. They make a partnership with Reynolds Aluminum to come up with an alloy that will be useful in a car. Reynolds comes up with this material. They put the engine in the back. They build a new chassis for it. And it's very reminiscent in many ways of European sports cars, this body shape rear. But Corvette never put it into production. The numbers didn't make sense to them. They were doing very well with the C3, and eventually they would do the C4, which is a modification of the C3, not a revolution. The revolution was going to have to wait to about 2019 when the C9 came out as a mid-engined sports car. Corvette always was interested in racing, always participated in racing, and eventually they got to be the pace car at the Indy 500. And here we have a pace car. Now this car was used at Indianapolis. It came from the General Motors collection. Initially they thought they would build just a few hundred of these machines, but it turned out they were so popular, they eventually would say every dealer gets one. Every dealer that's handling Corvette gets one of these things. Well, that turned out to be about 6,500 cars.
Wow.
So while they're interesting to look at, certain collectors thought, oh, I'll buy one of these because they're going to be rare. They might have been disappointed. They're not that rare. There are thousands of them, which is okay because it meant lots of regular people had the opportunity to acquire one. And one of the things that we are very supportive of here at the Saratoga Automobile Museum is regular people getting to experience these cars, not just looking at them in a museum, but actually getting to drive them, actually being able to own one if you wish.
Sure.
So we always encourage car shows and let people put for sale signs on them because we want people to enjoy these cars, and really the best way to enjoy it is driving it, not just looking at it. In a museum, we can't let you drive them, we can't let you sit in them, we can't let you start them up. So you can't smell the exhaust. All you get to do is look. But when we do our car shows and the cars are outside, there's a great opportunity. And now we've been rained out twice.
I was disappointed.
Yeah, rained out twice. Well, that's nothing compared to our
Right,
disappointment.
oh, I'm sure.
Rained out twice, so we've rescheduled for August 2nd, and hopefully we'll have some decent weather, and 1,000 cars will show up for that big lawn show. And a lot of them will have for sale signs on them, and we hope the public will come, and if you're interested in having an old car and driving a sports car, that's the opportunity.
Come check them out, folks.
Come check them out. So what else can we talk about today?
I think that gives you a pretty good overview of the museum.
Terrific.
I thank you for your time. I'm going to walk around and highlight some of the other cars
Terrific.
that
Well, great.
I've seen. And
Pleasure
Gary,
visiting with you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
welcome.
And folks, come check out the Saratoga Auto Museum.
Look forward to seeing you all here.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much. That's it for today at the Saratoga Auto Museum in Saratoga Springs, New York. Special thanks to Gary for the awesome tour and the individual attention and the stories of some of the cars. So get out here, folks, enjoy the cars. It's a beautiful area and there's lots to do. So while you're out here, take in the Saratoga Auto Museum. I'll put a link to their website in the description box. You can check them out online. My name's Mark from Let's Go Car Cruising. Get out and use your cars. The good weather is coming. I'm looking out through the window and I can see the sun shining finally. It's going to come. It's going to be sunny out. We're going to get to enjoy our cars. Go out and make memories, not excuses. Thanks again for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please do me a favor, click the like button, hit the subscribe, and ring the notification bell because there's a lot of cool stuff coming. I'm out there beating the pavement and finding cool stuff to talk about and learn about. Because the stories are where it's at. That's what's really cool. Thanks for watching. Let's go car cruising.